Desperate, a man sells his wife for one night for $1 million, not thinking about how this decision could destroy their relationship and change their lives forever.
David, I did it for you.
Oh, don't you tell me you did it for me. You did it for yourself. You were trying to do!
At the start of the story, we see a lonely young man walking along a pier. Deep in thought, he sits on a bench under a canopy, reminiscing about how he lost Diana. At the same time, a young woman in a white dress is riding a bus, thinking about David. She recalls how they first met back in high school. He was a senior, and she was younger. Every Wednesday after choir practice, he would drive Diana and her friend home. She loved looking at him through the rearview mirror and fell in love with his eyes. Their relationship blossomed, and when Diana turned 19, David proposed to her on the pier at Paradise Cove. Their parents disapproved, saying they were too young, but the couple didn't listen. They ran away together and later had a small wedding. David graduated from architecture school and found a job at a small firm. Meanwhile, Diana worked in real estate. In his spare time, David designed his dream home. One day, as Diana lay with her head on his lap, watching him work, she lovingly asked if she had ever told him she loved him. Smiling, he replied she hadn't, so she told him again. Like any couple, they had their disagreements. David had a habit of leaving his clothes lying around. One day, Diana found his boots on the table. Furious, she confronted him, and the argument quickly escalated but just as quickly turned into a passionate reconciliation right there on the floor. With little money for entertainment, they spent their time strolling through the city. David showed her different architectural styles he admired. Sometimes Diana questioned why they were looking at something as mundane as a car wash, and David would laugh, saying it wasn't about looking with your eyes but with your perspective. Over time, he taught her to see the world differently. One day, during a walk, they stopped at a vacant lot. Diana dreamed of David building his dream house there and making a name for himself. Despite their limited funds, she suggested taking out a loan. David agreed and began construction. But disaster struck. An economic crisis swept across the country. Diana's real estate sales dried up, and David was laid off from his construction job. In a desperate visit to their lawyer, they learned the bank was demanding immediate repayment of their loan. Without income, the bank threatened to take their home. Distraught, Diana confessed her fear and uncertainty about what to do. Determined to find a solution, David swallowed his pride and borrowed $5,000 from his father. But it wasn't enough, they needed $50,000. One night, an idea comes to the man. Waking his wife, he tells her he has figured out what they should do. They quickly get ready and head to Las Vegas. There, the man starts playing and gets very lucky. While he's increasing their fortune, Diana decides to go look at the shops. Entering one of them, she indulges in some chocolate candies. At that moment, a man standing nearby notices her. Seeing his interest, she shyly smiles and turns away. Approaching a clothing rack, Diana tries on a dress. As she's looking at herself in the mirror, the stranger catches up with her. He tells her the dress looks perfect on her and offers to buy it for her. She politely refuses and goes back to her husband. Meanwhile, things are going better and better for David. With the $5,000 they had, he now has $9,000. Diana is thrilled by her husband's success. That evening, back in their hotel room, David counts all the money and realizes he has won $25,000. He plans to go back to the casino the next day. As they savor their winnings, Diana tells him she loves him and assures him that her love is not about the money. Their passionate kisses lead to a hot night together. The next day, the couple returns to the casino, but this time, luck isn't on David's side. When their remaining money falls below $5,000, Diana suggests they stop. David decides to flip a coin. Heads, they stay, tails, they leave. Out of 3 flips, heads comes up twice, and they continue at the casino. David bets all their remaining money on roulette, but he guesses wrong and loses everything they have. Distraught, Diana begins to cry. In a defeated state, the couple prepares to leave, but they notice a crowd gathered around a player. They're all watching one man, John Gage, a billionaire. When Diana realizes he's the same man from the shop, she wants to leave, but before she can, John spots her. Turning to David, he asks for permission to borrow his wife, confident she'll bring him luck. Diana initially refuses, but after some persuasion from her husband, she agrees and walks over to the table. She places a bet on cards, but loses $100,000. She tells John that she doesn't like cards. John then suggests they try a different game. Moving to another table, he places a $1 million bet. Nervous, Diana rolls the dice, and the winning combination comes up. Overjoyed, she returns to her husband. John immediately approaches them and offers to celebrate his win by paying for their hotel room. Later, he sends the dress to Diana's room and invites her to a party. Confused, Diana tells her husband that it cost $5,000. In the evening, they both head to the party. John watches them from a distance, and then the three of them spend time together, enjoying lively conversations. After a while, the man suggests a game of billiards. During the game, Diana expresses her belief that not everything can be bought with money. For example, people and their feelings can't be bought. The billionaire dismisses this as a cliché and challenges her to test it. He makes the couple an offer, $1 million in exchange for one night with Diana. Outraged, Diana refuses, and David supports her decision. However, John urges them to think again. It's only one night, and the money would allow them to live without worrying about anything. Still, the couple refuses. John then asks for one dance with Diana as a farewell. Angered by his previous offer, David declines, and the couple leaves for their room. Later that night, unable to sleep, Diana brings up the offer again. She convinces her husband to accept the deal. The money will save them. They can finish building the house and pay off their debts. Reluctantly agreeing to her reasoning, David contacts his lawyer to draw up a contract with Gage. After reviewing the agreement, John signs it. Coming out to the couple, he informs David that the $1 million will be transferred to his account the next morning. Leaving Diana with the billionaire, David departs. He heads to a cafe with his lawyer, who tries to convince him that he made the right decision. Listening to the lawyer, David grows more uncertain and eventually decides to cancel the deal. He rushes to the hotel but arrives too late. In despair, he reaches the helipad just as the helicopter takes off. Distraught by what he's done, David spends the night walking around. Meanwhile, Diana is taken to a yacht in the middle of the ocean. She's escorted to a cabin where she freshens up and changes into the new dress and shoes. When she steps onto the deck, she meets John. A conversation begins, during which she remarks that the man must be used to buying women and asks why he chose to buy her. Laughing, the billionaire replies that he's never bought a woman before, but he offered her the deal because she claims she couldn't be bought. Seeing Diana's skepticism and resistance, he suggests they flip his lucky coin. Heads, she'll spend the night with him. Tails, she'll return to her husband. Diana flips the coin, and it lands on heads. With the words, "Nothing will happen unless you want it," John steps toward her and kisses her. Diana responds to the kiss. In the morning, when Diana returned to the room, she found her husband sitting on the floor, visibly upset. They embraced each other, and in that moment, they both confessed their love. When they got home, Diana thought everything was behind them and that, with time, she would forget the whole situation as though it had been a bad dream. However, when they arrived at the bank, they discovered that their house had already been confiscated and sold. Though Diana tried to move on and forget the incident, David couldn't let it go. He kept returning to that day, confessing that he couldn't stop thinking about it and wanted to talk. She explained that John had only taken her to the ship, and that was all she was willing to share. Unsatisfied, David secretly searched through her purse and found a business card from John. Suspecting her of hiding something, he threw fits over nothing. Determined to fix things, Diana went to a friend to find out who had bought their mortgage, and learned it was John Gage. Furious, she tracked him down at a restaurant, where she flipped over a table full of food and drinks onto him. After apologizing to his friends, John pulled her outside. There, she accused him of stealing and demanded he sell her her own house. Smirking, John agreed but asked for $2 million. In a moment of helpless frustration, Diana yelled that she hated him and intended to leave. As she walked away, she heard him call out that he didn't believe her, that she would love to hate him. Back home, Diana told David about the meeting with John and revealed that it was he who had bought their mortgage. Furious, David fixated on that day once again and demanded to know who was better in bed. Under the pressure, Diana admitted that the sex had been good but meant nothing to her. It was all for him. But David didn't believe her. He said he could see she had been drawn to John from the start. Slamming the door, he stormed out, leaving Diana crying in the middle of the room. After some time, she decided to call David and tell him that she was leaving all the money to him. She didn't need it. The weeks without David dragged on for Diana, each day feeling like a month. One day, at work, her boss interrupted her from staring at the walls. Finally, the dark days seemed to be over. An important client, interested in $10 million homes, had arrived. Initially, she was relieved, but when she saw that the client was John, she didn't want to deal with him anymore. She asked her boss to send someone else, but Mr. Langford insisted that either she worked with him or she was fired. Gathering all the necessary documents, Diana steps out to meet John, her face showing clear displeasure. Together, they head out to view some houses. As they drive from one property to another, John tries to strike up a conversation, but Diana remains silent, offering no response. As they pass one mansion, the billionaire suggests they take a look, even though it isn't for sale. Once inside, Diana immediately realizes it's John's house. He doesn't deny it and, in fact, proposes that she become his woman and the mistress of this home. She refuses, telling him that nothing good could come from their situation. People with their history don't have happy endings. Determined to move forward, Diana decides to find another job and starts teaching foreigners. To her surprise, John begins attending her classes. He persistently tries to win her affection, showering her with gifts, including dogs, making romantic gestures, and sharing his feelings. Over time, he wears her down, and she starts to return his feelings. Meanwhile, David moves into another house. While unpacking, he finds a toy hippopotamus they had bought during one of their trips together. Looking at their photos, he remembers the good times they shared. In a moment of despair over losing his love, he tears up all her pictures. One evening, Diana and John arrive at a restaurant. As they enter, they encounter David, who's drunk and tries to provoke a fight. Not wanting to escalate things, John sends Diana inside while he and his assistant handle David. They escort him to a car and take him home. Once there, the assistant drags him inside and notices the torn and taped together photos of Diana. The next morning, after sobering up, David decides it's time to make a change in his life. He gets ready and starts teaching at a college. One day, while giving a lecture, his lawyer friend shows up and tells him that Diana wants a divorce, but only on the condition that the land and all the money stay with him. Unable to accept this, David asks where his ex-wife is now. One day, Diana and John attend a charity auction at the zoo, where all the proceeds from the sale of animals are directed towards protecting endangered species. The first item up for bid is a hippopotamus, and knowing Diana's deep affection for these animals, John decides to participate. He nearly wins with a bid of $50,000, but at the last moment, someone outbids him with an offer of $1 million. Turning towards the voice, Diana and John see that it's David. The billionaire, recognizing the tension, decides they need to talk and steps aside. Just then, a heavy downpour begins, causing all the guests to scatter under the shelter, except for Diana and David, who remain sitting in their seats. David stares at Diana, asking her to hear him out. He admits that he made a terrible mistake in Vegas, and at one point, he believed they were invincible as a couple. But now, he understands that when people love each other, they remember everything. And if they stay together, it's not because they've forgotten, but because they've learned to forgive. He confesses that he was terrified John was the man she truly needed, believing him to be better than he was. But now, he sees he was wrong. With these words, David pulls out the divorce papers and signs them. He tenderly strokes Diana's tear-streaked cheek before walking away. Meanwhile, John watches the scene unfold from a distance. Later, on the drive home, Diana turns to John and says they need to talk. Sensing where this conversation is going, John lies, telling her she's just another woman from his $1 million club. Diana is initially shocked by this revelation, especially since John had previously sworn he wasn't like that. But gradually, she sees through the lie. She thanks him, says goodbye, and steps out of the car. Before she leaves, John gives her a lucky coin. As she hurries away, the chauffeur asks why John did that. With a wistful smile, John replies, "She'll never look at me the way she looks at David." On the bus ride home, Diana examines the coin. When she flips it over, she realizes it has no tail side. The bus takes her to the pier where, 7 years ago, David proposed to her. As she steps off, she notices a man sitting there. Quietly, she sits beside him and, with a soft smile, repeats the words of love they once shared. They gaze at each other, and with a gentle touch, their hands find each other once more. Do you think it's possible to salvage a relationship after everything that's happened? And which is more important, love or money? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.